Tropical storm Fiona is strengthening in the northeast Caribbean Sea, and it could become a hurricane before it makes what looks like a landfall somewhere in the western half of Puerto Rico. And then from there, it's on to the Atlantic, where it's likely to strengthen into a major hurricane. We'll have the latest on that. We're also going to take a look at that big major storm up in Alaska in the Bering Sea. We were talking about that late last week and how that's part of the equation of the pattern that is going to be changing across North America. And speaking of which, two typhoons and Fiona all have a hand in it. We'll have more on that, what to expect for the end of summer and the arrival of autumn, and much more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which only has one Joe, and that's me, Joe Cioffi. Brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. In southwest Suffolk County on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area with everything that you need to make sure your home looks good, works well, and is protected and will function during a tropical storm or hurricane. So make sure your generators are in order, your sump pumps, flashlights. Not that you'll need them with Fiona here in the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states, but there's still a lot left to hurricane season. And of course, you might want to fix up your yard after the drought of the summer with some fresh mulch and topsoil and anything else that you might need to get. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So it's just me tonight. And on a rare Saturday night. But we have Fiona and figured why not? So we're going to talk about that. It's amazing. Those of you who were here on Thursday and may have followed along on my Weather in 5 videos or on some of my website posts, that the storm was disorganized. We had the exposed center. Well, that all changed during last night and during the day today and during this evening. I think it has a shot. Excuse me. I think it has a shot to become a hurricane before it makes landfall along the somewhere in the western half of Puerto Rico. That's where the landfall point is, but the roughest weather is still mainly east of the center, which means that the rest of the island will be pounded by heavy rains and winds. And let's not forget the Virgin Islands and the Northern Leeward Islands experiencing tropical storm force conditions. And then we have also the eastern shores of the Dominican Republic. Does kind of look like the center, if it goes into western Puerto Rico, may actually wind up missing making a landfall on the eastern shores of the Dominican Republic. So once I think it gets into the Atlantic, this thing should probably strengthen into a major hurricane. And well, why don't we get going? We'll start with Fiona on the latest satellite view. I just was waiting for the 8 o'clock advisory, which is finally in, by the way. So it's at 16.6 north, 64.9 west. That's 75 miles south of St. Croix, 145 miles southeast of Ponce, Puerto Rico, or Ponce. Top winds are 60 miles an hour. Pressure's down to 998 millibars from 1,003 earlier, so it has strengthened, at least in terms of pressure, and I think you're going to see the wind start to catch up to that. Moving west-northwest now, or 285 degrees at 8 miles an hour. There are some changes just on some of these warnings here. The government of the Netherlands has discontinued the tropical storm warning for Saba and St. Eustatius. Otherwise, everything else remains the same, as we mentioned earlier. And here it is on the satellite loop. So let's bring that up for you. And there we go. Nope, that's not it. Sure why that showed up. Hold on, let me try this again. There we go. Now we got it. So here it is. This is Fiona. Nope, there it isn't. Hold on 1 second. I'm playing catch up here. There we go. Now you should see. You're still not seeing it. Oh, I know why. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. I'm so used to doing this with Joe. My head's not in the right place at the moment. But there you go. Here's the satellite loop of Fiona, and you could remember from yesterday what it looked like. You could certainly see the difference here in terms of the structure. You also could see the feathering of the clouds up on the northern part of the circulation, and even on the southern part of the circulation. Feathering is always a sign that this something is trying to strengthen. That's the outflow showing up. And if you look on the infrared, the area to the east of the center, now you're going to see when you look at the infrareds, it's a little tricky because you could look at something, and if you notice on the northwest side, there's a little area, there's some convection there that developed, and then it looks like the infrared. It kind of weakened a little bit, and that's actually quite normal in a strengthening process. You're going to have convection that's going to uh, form, peak, and then decrease, and then new convection forms that winds up being as strong or stronger than the prior convection. And what we're seeing here, certainly on the east side, you're seeing another blow up develop here of convection that's going to wrap itself around. I noticed this afternoon on those last few visible frames, if you look closely, you could actually see what looks like the beginnings of an eye developing at mid levels. And the Hurricane Center did mention that in their 5 p.m. Discussion. And so I think this had normally storms in the north, in the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean wind up weakening, but there have been instances of storms strengthening in the Northeast Caribbean under the ideal conditions or under the right conditions. And we certainly have them here. The shear has become minimal, and that's really important. It's been plaguing this storm for the last couple of days on its approach, but now the shear has really dropped down, and it's mostly on the light side. And certainly when it gets to the other side of Puerto Rico, the shear is probably going to be virtually non-existent. So it's got nowhere to go but up in terms of strength. Now here's the 5 p.m. Forecast from the Hurricane Center. As I said on the 8 p.m. advisory, 16.6, 64.9, maximum sustained wind still carrying at 60 miles an hour. And they have it becoming a hurricane as it's making landfall in western Puerto Rico. And then the H is just touching the northeast coast of the Dominican Republic, and then it begins to clear that and start to turn more north-northwest, and then eventually north. And by midweek, late Wednesday night, it may start to turn north-northeast. And I'm thinking that that's going to happen. Remember, we talked about the fact that if it stayed weak, it would have a much higher probability of going westward, but that is obviously not happening. We're seeing this storm strengthen. So that kind of lends credence to guidance that we had late last week, which indicated that this was going to become a well developed system. And the stronger these systems are, the more they want to go poleward, and the more they want to go to the north. Unless you've got a really super strong ridge to drive them westward, which of course has happened, unless you have a superstorm strong ridge, which we do not have, then you're going to have these systems that are going to want to try to turn more toward the north. Now we do have a reconnaissance aircraft there, and just starting to get some information from them. Don't have the pressure here on this plot. On the first pass in, there were winds between 40 and 50 knots, and that's it. I want to see these recon aircraft observations when they have that pressure plot in. And in terms of the actual graphic, we have yet they're in the process of closing off a center. You see they made the first fly through. Winds. The plane is up on the upper left there, the plane icon, so it's moving toward the northwest. So it's on the weaker side. We do have winds of gale force, 34 to some winds of 40 to 45 knots at flight level. And when it came in, there was some of those yellow barbs between 45 and 50. But once it hooks around and gets it into this red, the bright white area of the satellite here, the satellite presentation, that's where we're going to start to see those the brown, the light red, the dark red winds, and who knows, there might even be a purple wind barb there if they're talking about a pressure that they just reported down from 1,003 millibars on the prior recon mission. I think was the last, and it was dropping. Now it's down to 998. So the Hurricane Center's probably got a few minutes heads up with some of these reports. It's able to put it up on the advisory, even though they haven't really caught up graphically. All right, so where are we going with all this as far as this storm? Well, the intensity models, this was the 18Z intensity model from 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can see that just about all of them make this a hurricane, and you have a fair number that make this a Category 3 and even 2 models that make this a Category 4. I do not have, it's still a little early. We won't have the 0Z for about an hour, and the uh, hurricane track model guidance at 18Z kind of ticked a little bit to the left, but it's all the members, even the furthest west member of this is well offshore, the Carolinas, and well offshore southeastern New England. So I don't really see this as an issue here, except for the fact that we will get some waves. Also, by the way, all the tracks for now are to the left of Bermuda, which is kind of interesting, although they will be on the east side, so I'm sure they're going to be experiencing something out of this. Wouldn't be surprised if they wind up seeing some gales as this recurves. And most of these forecasts that you see out here go out 7 days. So we're talking these positions that when it's east of New Jersey, that is 144 hours from now. So you're talking on this forecast for sometime probably late on Friday when it's up in that position. And at that point, a cold front will have long passed through here in the Northeast, and we will get into some rather cool air. Now, here's how it looks on the 500 on the upper air. It is, it's we're at the time in the year now where these upper air systems are strengthening up in Canada. So you get to see how the gears work essentially as everything moves around. And here we are. This was Friday. Now we'll go to Saturday. And this is Saturday. I have the European up, by the way, just so everybody knows. So this is the upper air on the European. We're going to play my usual game, which how I like to call it, follow the flow. And if we follow the flow, so here is Fiona. We also have a big upper lobe between Newfoundland and southern Greenland, and there's another one up in Labrador here. Our flow here in the Northeast is mostly west-northwest. And you see the southwest flow that's coming out through the plains and up into the Great Lakes. So this is warm air that's coming into the eastern states. If you want coolish air, you have to kind of go up underneath these upper lows. So in New Brunswick and points northeast, that's where you have cool enough air. And in the meantime, you have two upper highs that are sitting out in the Atlantic. You have one here southwest of the Azores. You have one that's south of Bermuda. So if we follow that flow, you're going to see the flow going from east to west. And Fiona, as of this afternoon, is still under that upper high that's up to its northwest. It's not a strong upper high. It's on the weakish side. So that's why we're starting to see a bit of a west-northwest push to it. And it actually weakens a bit as we move through the next 2 or 3 days. Now, on Monday, we're going to see a system through the Great Lakes. You see that area of white that develops over the Great Lakes and carries into the Northeast. Now you got that little patch of blue. That is an upper trough that is moving off the New England coast. This is Tuesday morning. And there, Fiona, meanwhile, is in between. Let me redraw all this. So Fiona here is sitting north of the Dominican Republic, getting close to the southeastern Bahamas. You have an upper high that is now building back in Texas. The Atlantic ridge is weaker, and it's just kind of this little finger here that extends from the high that's south of the Azores, and that's out here. There's your trough that is moving on through. And by the way, note right behind it is another trough that's approaching Lake Winnipeg. So Fiona responds to the first trough on Monday and Tuesday by moving more north-northwest and north. That trough does not pick it up. It leaves it there. It's waiting for the second trough. And this one, this powerhouse for the end of the week, is the one that comes through. We'll get a sweeping cold front come through here on Thursday. Nice, cool, I mean, really quality, what I would call quality cool air for Friday and next weekend in the wake of this really strong upper trough in the eastern part of the United States. I have to try and recall when was the last time, because it's got to be. I got to when we talk to Joe Rayo tomorrow. I'm gonna have to ask him this, but I cannot recall in the last, I would say, 9 or 10 years, seeing a trough this robust, this strong, coming through the east in September. They were far more common I can remember them in the 80s and 90s and then maybe in the 2000s. Not every year, but most years you would see, you start to see some stronger troughs. This is probably among the stronger troughs that are moving into the east. And the thing is, it's coming almost timed perfectly. Autumn arrives on the Friday the 23rd. And this is going to be, we're actually going to have autumn air for the arrival of autumn in the eastern part of the United States. And that air is going to go all the way down into the southeast, by the way. But again, that trough is such a powerhouse that it just picks it up and lifts it on up to the northeast. Now, the European is much further left than the other models. It wants to take it to eastern Nova Scotia and over to Newfoundland before it just sort of gets totally absorbed by the cutoff low that's over New Brunswick by the time we get to next Saturday. The GFS is much further to the east, but you can see how these things are playing out. And by the way, right behind this upper trough is another strong upper trough. And this is for coming in Monday, September 26th, and Tuesday, and beyond that. So, models are very, very robust with these deep troughs. All of a sudden, in the eastern part of North America, particularly in eastern Canada, and used to be, like as I said, used to see it more often than not. Certainly haven't seen it in years where we'd have to wait till the early or middle part of October before we get the switch flipped. Not last year, I recall it was the middle of October that we finally got the switch flipped and the extension of summer came to an end. I at least for the starting Thursday and into the end of the month, it doesn't look to me like we're going to have an extension of summer by any stretch of the imagination. Now, one of the things that's driving all of this is if we put up the Northern Pacific, and I'm going to see if I can get all right, we'll use the mean sea level pressure. I think that's probably the best one. So let's roll back to today. So let me point out a couple of features that matter. First off, I'm going to back this up because one of the important things that we saw, and we talked about this past week, with these typhoons in the Western Pacific. And anytime you get it, not every time, but most of the time, when you get these typhoons that wind up recurving and finding their way eventually into the Gulf of Alaska, they have a tendency to drop deep troughs into the eastern U.S., particularly if those typhoons recurve east of Japan, which is, for everybody's edification here or education here, you know, Japan is in that box, okay? I kind of didn't draw the box too well, but you get the idea. That's Japan, the island of Japan. When they recurve east of Japan, they wind up energizing deep troughs in the Pacific, out oftentimes near the longitude of Hawaii. That then translates into a ridge in the west, and then that translates into a trough in the east. If we extended this back westward, you see these typhoons would be moving and recurving inside troughs that would be off the coast of China and over Japan. So the fact that we have a couple of these things, all those lows that you see out there, one is an inland typhoon in Shanghai, near Shanghai, The next one is east of 150 degrees east, and that's running northeastward. Now, this is Wednesday, and you can see this is the storm that has impacted Alaska to a great degree, particularly southeastern and eastern Alaska. Notice how look at I mean the gradient is so tight it's ridiculous. I mean at this point obviously it's a post-tropical cyclone, but it is a very very powerful post-tropical cyclone. Make no mistake. It looks like it reached its peak somewhere maybe with a 940 millibar pressure like a Category 4 hurricane. But the pressure seems to be coming up on the models as we go through today and then tonight and tomorrow. So at least the storm is starting to weaken. But while it was coming in at its peak strength and moving at fairly breakneck speed here to the northeast, it did create very strong winds. I was able to was looking at the hazards map before to look at some of the winds. They were still gusting to 40 to 50 miles an hour along the coast. There were some inland gusts to some mountain passes of 60 to 70, but I think it was worse, back earlier today and obviously overnight during last night. So that goes up and out, and then we're going to move these next systems. That becomes a deep low there in eastern Russia and eventually translates its way eastward into Alaska. There's also some kind of cutoff low that forms northeast of Hawaii. That's all part of the equation. And while all that's going on, if you see the blue there in the east, these are the troughs that'll be the lows and the troughs. Here's the first one for Thursday on the far right, followed by the big high, then followed by another strong trough, even stronger than the one for Thursday, and another strong high that comes in behind that, and that's off the European. And then the GFS is no different, by the way. The GFS and the European are kind of in lockstep with this, which is, I mean, at least the way the models have been behaving lately. I guess because these are such large scale features, the models are seeing them better than the typical summertime weaker features, where they'll just pick up on whatever noise is going on. But here's the GFS. And again, first trough on Tuesday, enough to pull it northward, but doesn't catch it. Waits for the next trough on Thursday, picks it up, kicks it out to the northeast. And then here comes a deeper trough for next week. I'm sorry, the week of, I want to just be clear. This now we're looking at going into the week of Monday, September 26th. Very deep trough into the eastern part of the United States. Very strong ridge in the middle and fairly deep trough into the Pacific Northwest. Also looks like some kind of tropical storm that comes in off the coast of Mexico there, that runs up into Baja in Mexico, probably brings some rain, perhaps, if this is correct, the trough in the west into the southwestern part of the United States. And also in the east, we've got the GFS trying to make some kind of tropical storm for the last couple of runs in the Northwest Caribbean, and we'll see if that winds up being real or not. The model might have more credibility now that we're into the month of September versus when you see these things coming up earlier. So the tonight, the satellite view. This is I've got the view here from Alaska. Maybe our friends from Alaska might be on the show, watching the show tonight. I can't see the chat board at the moment. But you could see the well-defined circulation here. I mean, this is just an absolute monster that moved up into the Bering Sea. And, I mean, these clouds are just screaming in the southeast flow ahead of it from south west to northeast. The circulation is so well-defined. This is my understanding is I really don't know too much about Alaska weather, but it is going down in the record book, certainly with the tidal flooding that's been reported. I don't see. Let me bring up to see what kind of warnings they have up there. So we've got actually coastal flood warnings. There are no winter storm warnings that I see. In fact, when I looked at all these OBS, um, when I looked at all the OBS from Alaska in this part of Alaska around Nome, for example, I didn't see And then, of course, the inland areas. I didn't see any kind of winter storm warnings. You've got the wind advisories. You've got gale warnings in effect for the coastal waters. You've got coastal flood warnings still up. Let's pull up the NOAA forecast. At the moment, they are southwest at NOAA. They're southwest at. I think I said southeast flow earlier. I meant southwest flow. Sorry, my bad. Southwest at 41, gusting to 51. The barometer down at 985 millibars with the light rain, fog, mist, and windy. Let's look at the 3-day history of the OBS here on the wind. I'll be curious about the wind more than anything else. Pressure. Where is the wind? Oh, here we go. I mean, look at this. 41 to 50, gusting to 51. Um, the station was actually closed for 7 hours here. 35 gusting to 48, 37 to 55, 36 to 52, 43 to 50. I mean, this hours and hours of gusts into the 50s. My Lord. Yeah, I mean, this started at you started to get these gusts over 40 miles an hour beginning on the 16th. So yesterday at roughly 3 o'clock our time, and now it is you're still gusting to 50 or better than 50 miles an hour at 3 o'clock Eastern time. 3 p.m. Eastern time. So that's an old ob, believe me or not. So amazing. That's quite a long period. That's basically almost 2 days of 50 mile an hour winds. When we get our strong winds, I mean, sometimes they last for, in the wintertime, you certainly can get systems where you wind up being windy for a couple of days. So we know what that's like in the wintertime. Usually with summer tropical systems, they come in and they're fast, 8, 10, 12 hours tops. But this is really prolonged stuff that they're having to deal with. And it looks like the wind is going to continue to be an issue overnight, starts to diminish some on Sunday, and less of an issue as they move into Sunday night. So very, very impressive, no doubt about it. All right, let's bring the U.S. Let's bring the U.S. satellite loop up. We'll put it up with the lightning flashes. And you can see on the lower right, we have Fiona. We have some clouds. We have some showers and thunderstorms in Florida off the southeast coast. Otherwise, the weather in the east, save for some high clouds in northern Maine, was really nice. There was still some haze in some places. Some of the smoke from the West Coast wildfires was moving overhead yesterday and today. So some of you may have experienced a little bit of haze. So just bear that in mind that that's from the wildfire stuff. And you're seeing some showers and thunderstorms firing up in parts of Iowa. That is where the Storm Prediction Center has some risk today. But I want to just jump to Monday because we do have a marginal risk of severe weather from eastern Ohio across Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, all the way up into north central New York State. This is again for Monday into Tuesday. Obviously, we're not going to have any issues for tomorrow. And as far as rainfall is concerned for the next 7 days, we can take a look at that. Nothing, especially you still have it mostly dry from the mid-Atlantic states through the southeast and back across the Gulf states. There is going to be some rain, a half an inch or more. Looks like north of Route 84, basically in New York State and in Connecticut. Northward, some heavier rains up in north central New York of up to several inches for this week, and even some higher amounts in northern Vermont and northern New Hampshire. Because, of course, if you're going to have these big upper lows dropping down, and they're dropping down up in their area, they're going to get some consequences out of that. And we've got some heavier rains in parts of Iowa and Illinois this week on the order of 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half. Also in the southwest, and we've got rain moving into northern California. Interestingly enough, with these big cutoffs dropping down off the west coast. So let's just quickly take you through the weather here. I'll use the full U.S. view so everybody can get an idea depending on where you are watching from, and then we'll give the recon another check. But here we are for Sunday with high pressure east of Virginia back into North Carolina. A west wind, temperatures eastern PA to southern New England tomorrow should make it up into the 80s, except near the shore, where there should be some local sea breezes. Weather through most of the country is fairly quiet. We've got some showers and storms forming tomorrow night in parts of Illinois and northern Indiana. That moves eastward. This is our cold front for Monday that moves on through. It's the one that takes Fiona and drags it northward, but doesn't pick it up to the northeast. And then here comes the stronger front. So Tuesday, we're going to get some dew point relief, by the way, Tuesday into early Wednesday. It's also going to be a little bit cooler on Tuesday than Monday, but nothing like what we just experienced. But it won't be as warm tomorrow, as warm as we get tomorrow, and particularly Monday. There will be a temperature break Tuesday, but then Wednesday the temperatures are going to come up again because we're going to go back into the southwest flow. So I think we could see middle or even upper 80s in some places. Then watch for showers and thunderstorms coming through during Thursday. Late looks like the timing of this front wants to come through maybe late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. And then that is going to pick up Fiona and move it to the northeast. And look at this cool air. I mean, that's a really decent shot of cool air that comes down. What we use is the rain snow line, the 540 thickness, gets down to southern New Jersey, believe it or not, by Friday afternoon. So that is a very, very impressive shot of cooler air. We're probably going to see a lot of Q around. And in terms of temperatures, my expectation is, at least for eastern PA to southern New England for an early call, definitely not getting out of the 60s. And it might be on the lower end more than the higher end. And the nights will be especially cool as well. The core of the cold air will pull out, but it'll still be cool into the weekend, and the humidity should still be reasonable. And then here comes the next front, which is for next Monday, the 26th. This is from the even deeper trough that's coming into the east. And you see the gradient really tightens up nicely. Yeah, I mean, this is as far as this is as impressive an autumn weather pattern as I've seen for late September in quite a few years, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Meanwhile, in the West, not a whole lot happening in the West, but if the models are correct, maybe some rain in the super long range that moves on in. We'll have to see how that plays out. But there could be some, well, certainly in the short range, as the WPC folks pointed out, there's an upper low off the coast of California tomorrow with rain sweeping in. A little early for that, but it's happening. And then some residual showers into midweek, then a break, and then maybe some more moisture longer term with some fronts that are coming in to the Pacific Northwest. And we've got Fiona, we've got the typhoons in the Pacific, all drivers of this pattern, and uh, wanting to drop these deep troughs in the eastern part of the U.S. Very, very, as I said, I'm really surprised it's this early because of the experience we've had over these last number of years, where summer seems to want to last at least into the middle part of October. So. Alfred K. Phillips, our buddy up on the north coast of Alaska, says 15-foot storm surge. The Alaska West Coast, Nome and Hopper Bay, Alaska area. I don't know if I'm not. I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Kotzebue, Norton Sound area. Yes, and those coastal flood warnings continue with that powerhouse storm that has moved up there into now it's starting to move away and starting to weaken, thankfully. So maybe the worst of it is over with, but still some high tides to get through. And I believe there's a new moon this weekend, as I remember Joe Rayo saying. So that certainly didn't help the cause. So all right, I'm gonna put the I'm gonna so I see somebody hit super chat. I can't see who. Oh, here we go. Chuck Cardillo hitting super chat. Thank you so much, Chuck. Uh, Appreciate it greatly. And Anthony Orr hitting super chat. So let's check the recon one last time and see what's going on with that. And then I'm going to put an end to the show, and I'm going to go out on my deck, and I'm going to smoke a cigar and relax for a while. Hang on. Second here. Right, I got to make sure I got the right box clicked, and I don't. All right, so you know what? Let's do this. Make me smaller. There's your recon. Okay, so it's there. Let me go to here, refresh, and okay, so you're seeing it, the plane starting to make the turn. As it did so, the winds here are all northeast. So I'm just trying to gain perspective as to where it is. Uh, but there are winds. We've got some red wind barbs there showing 55 to 60 from the northeast, and now the plane is coming down. Where you see here, you got northwest winds. So somewhere in here, somewhere down in here in this area of bright white clouds, or just close to the area of bright white clouds, is where the center of circulation is. Let's just see if there's a new um, recrowd. No, it doesn't look like they've updated this yet either. So um, was hoping that they would, but they did not. So the plan of attack tomorrow is the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which will be on Sunday mornings. Our usual start time is 11 a.m. Eastern, and we're going to stick to it. We'll be on tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So hope to see you then. Thanks for tuning in on this Saturday evening. We often, as we said earlier, we usually don't do shows on Friday and Saturday so that Joe and I get a 2-day break. But I figured let me jump in and update everybody. So we'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for the super chat hits from Chuck Cardillo and Anthony Orr. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow morning.